The time is now 5:30. The date is August the 17th, 2021. We will call to order the city council meeting for the city of State School. We'll have our invocation and pledge of allegiance by council member Venus Mack.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, I come to you simply to say thank you for all of the things that you have done for us. I ask that you guide the council to make great decisions. I want to send a special prayer for all of the families affected by COVID-19. Keep us safe, Lord, as a city, a state, and a country. I ask all of these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor, do we have any public comments?
No, Mayor.
All right, we will use a point of privilege. I will turn it over to council member Sherry Barr.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to share with all of you that the council wants to make a special commendation. We nominated our city clerk for Clerk of the Year at GMA. She was not named the state Clerk of the Year, but she's definitely our Clerk of the Year. And so we're going to present her a certificate, and I want to read it to you, and then we'll all pose for a picture so we can remember the occasion. GMA Clerk of the Year 2021 nominee, Leah Harden. Leah Harden exemplifies competent, courteous service for our council, our city, and our citizens. Promoted from within, Leah was able to cover her responsibilities immediately. Soon after, we experienced a turnover of half our council. Through COVID, change, and challenges, Leah has remained wonderfully supportive of us all. And she has. Let's take a picture.
All right.
Can you see? Can you see? Can you see Phil? I'm blocking it.
Yep, that's good. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Nope, I forgot about.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. We got to know when we got to sign, but I just want to wait.
We are now going to another point of privilege and turn it over to Councilmember John Riggs.
Thank you, Mayor. I have something very, very short to say about COVID in our county, in our community. And I just want to make a request. And my request is that I encourage everyone who has not been vaccinated to please visit your doctor or nurse or health department or pharmacist, and please ask them 3 questions. Are you vaccinated? Why or why not? Should I get vaccinated? And then just listen to what they have to say. That is all.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. I think just to kind of piggyback on what John said, we are at a critical point with COVID-19 within our community. We currently are experiencing high numbers of individuals in our hospital. And the biggest thing that we've talked about from day one is the threat to our medical infrastructure. I think too often we get lost in the death data. And it's not about the death data, it's really about that hospitalization rate. When you've got 51, 54 plus individuals in a hospital like East Georgia, that's a tremendous weight on our medical infrastructure, our nurses, our doctors, and all of our staff that's working to keep those individuals healthy, alive. We've had as many as 15 individuals on ventilators. And ladies and gentlemen, right across from City Hall, we've watched the lines of individuals pour over into East Main Street for testing. COVID is very real. It is something that we're gonna have to deal with. And it's gonna be something that we're gonna have to make sure that we defeat. And I believe that we do have the tools to do so, but we gotta make sure we have the will to do so as well. So with that being said, thank you, Councilman Riggs, for definitely highlighting the seriousness of this issue. And if any other council member would like to say anything, please do so in regards to COVID-19.
Mayor, just real quick, a personal story, if you will. I spent this weekend moving a 16-year-old into her aunt's house because her mother and stepfather both have COVID. They were both very anti-vax, and now they're both intubated and in the hospital. And I can tell you this, either get the shot for yourself, or make sure you make arrangements to have your children looked after, your power of attorney taken care of, your businesses taken care of. Anybody, if you've got people that rely on you,
Yeah.
and you choose not to get the vaccine, which you have the right to do, make sure you put your house in order, because you just never know. They went from swimming in the pool to intubated in 36 hours.
Wow.
Both of them. And now this teenager is gonna have to figure out how to navigate high school with that.
Yeah.
So put your house in order, or put your house in order one way or the other.
Man, that's a serious story. Thank you, Phil. Is there anyone else that'd like to say anything? Okay. I'm sorry. Do you mind yielding to Councilman Riggs? Councilman Riggs?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows this is not political. I'm not asking you to do it. Don't even, I mean, I'm just saying, don't ask me, don't ask the TV, ask your doctor. Go ask your doctor or your pharmacist or your nurse, or go to the health department and ask them if they have been vaccinated. And ask them why or why not. And then ask them if you should be vaccinated. And listen to what they have to say.
Thank you, John. Councilwoman Barr.
I was just going to point out, Commissioner Johnson from up in Augusta posted yesterday on Facebook, the Augusta Health Center, his daily report yesterday morning was there were 110 people in the hospital with COVID in Augusta yesterday morning. Of those 110, 104 were unvaccinated. 6 had been vaccinated. And his message was vaccination works. The unvaccinated are the ones who are bearing the brunt of it, but they are spreading it to others too. So please seriously consider getting vaccinated to protect yourself, and like others have said, your loved ones, the people around you. Our children are getting sicker because there's so much more virus and they can't withstand it when it's this prevalent. So for the sake of the vulnerable among us, go get a vaccine, please. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing that it's not, just as an update for today, East Georgia Regional Medical Center has 47 COVID patients, and 16 of those individuals are on ventilators. Let us keep those individuals in prayer, and let us keep our community and our nation in prayer as well. Thank you for the point of privilege. We'll move down to the next item, which is consideration of a motion to approve the consent agenda. Approval of minutes from our August the 3rd council minutes, as well as executive sessions minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move down to we'll move down to agenda item 5, consideration of a motion, opening a public hearing, consideration of a motion to approve application for an alcohol license, section 6-5, Snow Halafo 8 South Main Street, Statesboro, Georgia 30458. Owner, Ms. Annie Natson. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. We go to planning and zoning. Okay,
She didn't pay attention.
okay.
No.
Fire inspection?
No issue.
Okay. Chief Broadhead?
No issue, sir.
City Attorney?
Mayor, you want me to go over a conversation with the applicant? That we were advised to meet with them.
Mm-hmm.
So my recommendation remains the same, that council consider the application.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, is there anyone here to speak for the request? Is it?
We met with the city attorney and went over the concerns that everyone had. And we're sharing with you all right now our business plan. And we just wanted to point out a few things that we have in our business plan in regards to the alcohol license. So if you look on page 16, well, let's start on 15. If you look on page 15, you can see that the containers that we plan to continue serving our snowballs in will be white styrofoam containers. And then the containers that we plan to make our alcoholic beverages in on page 16 will be clear containers. And those clear containers may be glass, may be plastic, whatever DPH deems us approved to use. So I know that was a big concern that you all had last time we were here.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Is there a motion to close the hearing? Excuse me. Is there anyone here to speak against? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any council discussion?
I have a question. I was not here, but I was watching the live, so I kind of got some of what was going on and came. So your issue was that if these people come and purchase the alcoholic beverage, if they went a certain fee, then they wouldn't be in the open container area. So that,
Right, any removal of beverages off the premises, even into the privately owned but semi-public parking lot, would be a violation of the open container law.
okay. And so what do you guys have in place to make sure, I mean, because I'm a business owner as well, and once the customer leaves their establishment, you really don't have any control over what they do. So what do you want to put in place to make sure that once you serve this alcohol, you're like, hey, you cannot leave? You know, but what do you have in place if somebody is like, because we have college kids here, you know, they may try to leave. So what do you see for that if something like that happens?
So we plan to, as we stated before, post signs that says you cannot leave the premises, you cannot leave the area around the porch with the beverage. We have staff that's outside all the time, they're cleaning tables, they're engaging with customers. So we did instruct our staff, if approved, you know, if you see someone trying to get up, whatever, just stop them, let them know if there's trash cans, you can dispose of it here. Outside of that, honestly, yeah.
Any further discussions by council?
Tell me, Ms. Natson, about I see the distinction that you're using the styrofoam for your regular, and then for the adult version, the alcohol version, that you're planning on using clear, so your staff can easily tell. But if it's just a clear plastic container, that wouldn't say to a customer that you shouldn't go away with it. I'm concerned about if it's plastic, it just looks like another disposable drink.
So I did mention that we're gonna have signs outside that says you cannot leave the premises. Our staff will be outside letting them know you cannot leave the premises. And then, of course, when they're buying that drink, you will let them know you have to remain here with the drink. Like I stated, we do have to get with DPH to make sure that we can use the glass the glasses versus the plastic. If DPH says you have to use plastic, that's what we'll have to do.
I'm not sure why the Department of Public Health has to approve the containers that you put things in.
Because we're a restaurant. So basically, everything we do have to be approved with DPH.
Okay, but I'm just thinking like restaurants I go to, that they provide takeout containers, but what I'm eating in there is heavy. It's crockery, it's glass, it's a real heavy plastic, not a disposable feeding plastic. So I'm wondering if that wouldn't help reinforce your message, if it was some kind of crockery or something that's obviously not intended to go away.
We're open to the type of glass that we use or plastic that we use. Whichever one we use, we'll just do our best to make sure that message is put out and that our staff is outside monitoring and letting customers know they cannot leave. We were at El Severo recently and we could have just walked out with the glass. You know, we could have. But once again, we're gonna do our part to put that message out, just like other restaurants here, that you cannot leave with an alcoholic beverage.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion by council?
And I do think that this is a good thing. I would love to see this. I just don't want you guys to get in trouble. Like, who gets in trouble if somebody leaves? Is it the customer or is it the owner?
Well, there is, of course, the customer would, but there's also a provision in 614 that requires the licensee to maintain order both within the premises and in the parking lot. So of course, a citation could be issued if that order is not maintained against the licensee.
Right. I think, like I was gonna say, I think that this is a great idea, and I do wanna see this come to pass. I just don't want you guys to be held accountable for a college kid who's drunk or deciding that, hey, I don't wanna stay here or wanna go to El Sombrero,
Yeah.
and they just, you know, go out. So that's the only concern that I have, is that the business owner being at stake for an unruly customer, and it's bound to happen. So that's my only concern.
Isn't a large part of your business like drive-through, like people drive up and
I wouldn't say a large. I would say about 8% of our customers use the drive-through.
okay.
Most of our customers prefer to get out of their vehicles.
So if somebody drives up and orders one of these drinks, then your staff knows to tell them, I'm sorry, that's only available for on-premises consumption. But you're welcome to park and come sit on the deck and we can serve that to
The
you.
menu won't be available at the drive-through anyway, so that won't even be an option.
Okay, thanks.
All right, any further discussion by council?
So you're saying that the approval from DPH, it has to be approved as to what container you use? Is that what you're indicating?
So basically, I want to check with them. We
Okay.
do have commercial dishwashing abilities. But I do want to check with them and make sure that what we have, because right now, when we got approved, we were just using styrofoam cups. So I just want to make sure that changing that will meet DPH's standards.
So why can't you just use a glass? I wanna know, why can't you just use a glass?
We
You
can,
can?
yeah.
Okay. I'm kinda with, Councilwoman Matt. I do wanna see this, come to fruition, but I wanna do it in the safest glass. Would that cut out a whole lot of walking away, Kane, if they just use the glass?
I think that would certainly help, Councilwoman Chambers. And of course, under 613B, when council considers a license for alcohol sales, council can impose that sort of conditions, any sort of conditions that are intended to minimize any adverse effects that would happen from the licensure.
Gotcha.
So I will say there is a heavy plastic
Okay.
because glass is very easily breakable. And a lot of restaurants use a heavier plastic. So that is also an option. We can use a heavier plastic. And then we can put a staging area for when they're done, they just bring their heavy plastic glasses to that area.
Any further discussion by council?
The only comment I would have is I think it's more important that they designate an area than what they're necessarily serving in. I really separate between kids and adults, notwithstanding. But I think making sure that they just have a well-defined area, because like you said, they can't hang out in the parking lot, right?
Right.
So you gotta have a well-defined outside area, and I know that your building itself is very small and your deck is kind of small, so just make sure you have a well-defined outside space that people can hang out and get brain freeze.
So the patio tables that we have around the deck, that is still considered a part of our premises where they beverages.
It's my impression that it is part of the premises,
Okay.
just the whole, as long as it's that area, it immediately, that should be fine.
So like people can't come by it and go sit in their car and drink it. They need to actually be on the premises.
That's just required with any sort of on-premises license in the state of Georgia, and the to-go cocktail state law is currently barred by local ordinance anyway, so at this point, there's absolutely no removal of any alcoholic beverages from any on-premises licensees. It wouldn't be legal anyway.
But it doesn't come up that often in most restaurants, so they're not necessarily having signs. People just know they're not supposed to walk out with their drink in their hand.
Right, it's just this different sort of situation with the fact that it's not table service,
Right.
like in a typical restaurant setting, right?
I think that's what the issue is that it's outside already. It's not like an indoor restaurant, because then people would know, okay, once you walk outside, you know, or your staff could watch it more if somebody tried to walk out, but because it's outside, I think that's where it kind of gets tricky at.
What if we impose the conditions that it be the heavy plastic, non-disposable type beverage container and the signage, clear signage outside?
I'm not comfortable dictating specific requirements for a restaurant like that. Now, signage, I think, is something that is relatively universal.
Okay.
When we start telling them what silverware to use and what, you know, I mean, outside of a broad, like, hey, if you're gonna walk around downtown, you gotta use a plastic cup, I think that's reasonable. But I don't know, I'm uncomfortable getting down into the nitty gritty like that.
Okay.
Just opens it
Yeah,
up to
I'm just
too
trying
much
to deal with the
nitty-gritty.
concern about it not, that it being more obvious to the customer that it's not intended to be disposable and walk away.
I mean, we're open to using a heavier type of plastic cup.
Okay.
I'm just elated that you're happy to work within the conditions that we're putting forth. That speaks volumes about you and the integrity of your business if you're able to do that. So kudos to you for that.
All right, so is there a motion to approve with an amendment identifying specific defined glasses for the adult beverages?
So,
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All
The
the-
signage.
Signage.
And
the
signage.
And signage, okay.
Wait, we're requiring the glasses?
Just that
It's
it's,
a heavier plastic.
just that it's a heavier plastic, and they're okay with that.
Yeah. So is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So we did include the signage
Oh.
of the heavy beverage, is that right?
I think the signage is considered universal.
John is waving his hand.
Okay. John, is there a name?
Yes, sir, but I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, but I just see too much of an opportunity for a patron, to take advantage of the outside, nature of this establishment. When it comes to underage drinking, passing it off, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to vote against it. But I also wanted to say to the both of you, how profusely I appreciate both of your service to our country and your service to our community when it comes to the parents and our children. But I have to vote against it. Thank you, man.
All right. Okay, thank you. Let's show that agenda item 5 is passed with amendments. We move down to agenda item 6.
I'm sorry.
Well, I voted for.
We have 4 for, 1 against.
Okay, thank you.
we'll move down to agenda item 5. Excuse me, agenda item 6. Thank you. We'll move down to agenda item 6, a public hearing consideration of a motion to approve application SE 21-07-01. Oscar Miracle requests a special exemption from Article 8, Section 801 of the Statesboro zoning ordinance to allow for the operation of a virtual car dealership at 22 South Main Street. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, Kathy, if you will.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The applicant is requesting a special exception to locate a virtual car dealership at 22 South Main Street. The intent is to utilize one of the offices at the location to provide consultation services and augmented reality services to sell vehicles. As per Section 11 of the Statesboro zoning code, used car and truck sales are to be located in areas designated highway-oriented commercial. The applicant does not intend to keep any vehicles on site and will be delivering all vehicles sold directly to customers in order to prevent congestion issues in the adjacent parking lot. And you can see outlined in red the building that is going to be used for the virtual car dealership on South Main Street. It's at the corner of East Vine Street, right down the street. Future land use map shows the site to be located in the commercial redevelopment area number 1. The zoning map shows the location in the central business district. The top left slide shows the building in which the applicant wishes to do his business, and the bottom right shows property adjacent to the site. Staff recommends approval of SE 21-07-01. If this petition is approved by the mayor and city council, it should be subject to the applicant's agreement to the following enumerated conditions. 1, approval of the special exception does not grant the right to develop on the property without adherence to the city code and approval by the Department of Planning and Development. 2, autos shall be delivered to customers directly. Any on-site transactions must have dedicated parking spaces. At the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission on August 3rd, 2021, the Commission voted to approve the special exception with staff conditions by a 4-0 vote. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, is there anyone here to speak for the request?
Good afternoon. My name's Oscar Mauricio. First time doing this, so pretty nervous. First bigger endeavor I've taken on, and definitely hoping to contribute to growing Statesboro and helping really make it shine, in Georgia and showing the world what Statesboro really is, a place for innovation and growth. Is there any questions for me?
Yeah, we'll get to that in another section.
Oh, okay.
Thank
Too
you.
fast.
Is there anyone to speak against? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, any discussion by council?
Tell me about a virtual car dealership. Basically, what does that mean? You're just sitting in a computer showing pictures to customers around the wherever?
No. So part of what the aim to have it in downtown is to also help and contribute to foot traffic. So we would have people come in and we would show the vehicles in a virtual showroom that they would interact with through virtual reality goggles like the Oculus, and they would we hope to I hope to get it to the point to where they're actually even able to interact with all the buttons in the car, and be able to get a better feel for what they're buying.
Huh.
Pretty cool.
That's neat.
Okay.
It's very innovative.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions by council?
Thanks for telling us about it.
All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve?
I have a question for staff. Kathy, This seems to be an online business. That building doesn't even have any parking spaces. Why is he even having to get an exemption for a virtual online business?
Pardon me. Because unfortunately, the zoning ordinance talks about, because the zoning ordinance is old, it needs to be updated.
Fair enough.
So that when the zoning ordinance was created, virtual wasn't even included at that point. So
Right.
it's a car dealership. And so we have to treat it by the use. Now, I could certainly make the argument that it's an office use, but because he's dealing in cars, the zoning ordinance does not allow us that wiggle room to look at it as a virtual business. And so therefore, we had to come for you tonight.
I'm just saying, because I mean, I'm looking at that building, that's a shared use building, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so I mean, he doesn't even occupy the whole building anyway, so I mean, it's definitely an office space.
I agree.
So
I
I'm
agree.
just, okay. So are you suggesting then on a more macro level that we may need to update our zoning?
I certainly think so. I certainly think so.
And by a show of hands, anybody in here want to update the sign ordinance?
We would include that.
We know.
All right, get to it.
Okay, but that's a very good point.
Okay, thanks. That's what I was just curious.
That was
Because I was
astute
like,
observation.
If he's online and he's doing things Oculus, why are we even talking about this?
But it sounds like it's not exactly online, because he's got walk-in customers looking in the goggles and such, so you're gonna be, it's like retail from that aspect. And you're walking in, so I assume you're at the ground level and just have a sign out front that says, come check out your car virtually?
Yes, ma'am. And that's just to have a more personal relationship with clients, build up that trust.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do we have the second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, there you go, John. All right, so we move down to agenda item 7, public hearing consideration of a motion to approve application RZ 2107-02. John White requests a zoning map amendment from the R8 single-family residential zoning district to the R4 high density residential zoning district in order to develop a duplex on Parker and West Grady Street. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Thank you, sir. The applicant is requesting a zoning map amendment in order to develop a duplex on a property located on the northwest corner of West Grady Street Extension and Parker Street from the R8 zoning district to the R4 zoning category. This property is currently an overgrown lot immediately across from the redeveloped Reverend W.D. Kent Park. This location is currently zoned R8, single-family residential, which is meant for small lot, single-family homes. Although the area surrounding the site has historical uses that are not in alignment with the current zoning. The applicant does have sufficient space to meet all requirements regarding setbacks on the property, and the site itself is contiguous to the R4 high-density residential zoning district. So again, the site is outlined in red on, it's near at the corner of Parker and West Grady Street, across from the park. The future development map shows this to be for residential redevelopment. The zoning map shows it in the R8 zoning district, which is the dark orange, but directly across the street from the light orange, which signifies the R4 zoning district. The property on the top left shows the subject property, the photo on the top left, and then the photo on the bottom right shows adjacent property, which is the park across the street. The next slide shows the proposed site plan for the duplex, and again, it shows that it meets all the setback requirements and has adequate parking in the rear. Staff recommends approval of RZ 21-0702. If this petition is approved by the mayor and city council, it should be subject to the applicant's agreement to the following enumerated conditions. 1, approval of this zoning map amendment does not grant the right to develop on the site without city approval. 2, all stormwater outfall on the site must be directed into the main system to ensure that there are no significant problems resulting from the development. At the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission on August 3rd, 2021, the commission voted to approve the zoning map amendment by a vote of 4-0. That's my presentation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak for the request? Is there anyone here to speak against the request? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Council?
Aye.
Council, any discussion?
I'm curious, is this in the urban redevelopment area, neighborhood? Is it eligible for any of the incentives? I'm glad to hear somebody build it, doing some infill building. Is it eligible for any of the incentives we're coming up with?
It could be. The program hasn't been developed yet, but we encourage all development in the urban redevelopment area. So we are certainly willing to work with any potential developers as we move forward with our programs.
So we don't want people to slow down waiting for details so we can make some of it retroactive, probably.
Right, sure, for sure.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right. Seeing that there's none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we move down to agenda.
Aye.
We'll move down to agenda item 8. To my understanding, this agenda item had been removed. What's the status of that? Okay.
Sir, it has been removed because the applicant, rather than asking for a variance, has determined that he can meet our sign code, and therefore the variance is not needed.
Okay. Good. Thank you, Captain.
Technically, you can paint the building, can't you?
I'm sorry,
You
what?
can just paint a sign on the building, can't you, as opposed to like hanging a sign?
Well, it has to meet certain dimensional requirements, and then if it's a mural, it has to have a historic theme. But if it meets our sign code, he can put on it whatever he wants. And so that's what he's determined to do.
Okay. Is the owner here or is a representative here?
Y'all got to be tired of me. Josh Woodley. Second the comment on the sign code. I think the staff does great working with us through projects as new businesses come about. This applicant's Dolan's Barbecue. We asked her to pull back and let's do a bigger picture. She's got some other things that she wants to do with the building that you see in these types of downtown, some really vintage, neat signage. And instead of bringing it item by item, we decided to pull back, let this meet code, just doing some lettering, get her open.
Okay.
And then come back in front of y'all with a full picture of what she wants to do.
Okay, good deal, good deal. That building looked amazing compared to where it was.
They've done a great job.
Yeah, it does. Please let them know we say thank you. All right, we'll move down to agenda item 9, public hearing consideration of a motion to approve application 521-07-04. Renfro Outdoor LLC requests a variance from Article 15, Section 1511 of the Statewide zoning ordinance in order to upgrade the existing billboards to LED displays at 75 Northside Drive. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, should we open 9 and 10 concurrently, or are they two different?
They're two separate.
Two separate.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The applicant is requesting a variance to allow for the installation of an LED billboard at 75 Northside Drive, and this is the Checkers property. This installation will replace the current existing tri-vision board on the location and remove the external lighting and catwalk from the site. As per the lighting study submitted, the digital displays will not be animated, and they will adjust to the lighting conditions of the time of day in order to prevent significant distraction during low light hours. So there is the site on Northside Drive. The future development map shows this to be an activity center / regional center area. The zoning for this is commercial retail. The top left shows the subject billboard on the Checkers property. And then the bottom right photo shows adjacent property. The staff report is on record. I do want to say that the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission on August 3rd, 2021, the commission voted to approve the variance by a 4-to-1 vote. If this petition is approved by the mayor and city council, it should be subject to the applicant's agreement to the following enumerated condition. Approval of this variance does not grant the applicant the right to make structural changes to the billboard. All modifications must be approved through the issuance of a billboard permit. That is my presentation.
All right, thank you, Kathy. Is there anyone here to speak for this request?
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Matthews. I'm here on behalf of Renfro Outdoors, and I have my clients Jed Renfro and Ben Jones with me as well. And we just we're here in the next item on the agenda is very similar. I think all the arguments and discussion that will take place with regards to this one will apply equally to that one. The actual location of this billboard is, the Checkers is real new. So when Checkers was mentioned at first, it didn't click with me. It's right across the road from Franklin Chevrolet. So if you're leaving Lowe's on 80 coming back towards town, it'll be right after you cross the bypass on the left-hand side of the road. And what's there right now is a Tri-Vision sign. It's got 3 sides and it turns to show new ads every few seconds. And what's being proposed here is an LED board. So it's going to replace the printed sign with an LED screen that's the exact same size as what's there. It automatically dims and brightens with the ambient light. So when it's bright outside, it brightens up so that you can see it and you don't have to squint to read it. When it's dark outside, it dims so that the light doesn't project beyond the billboard. And they've actually had lighting studies done that were submitted to the staff along with the applications that say that there will be almost no appreciable increase in the ambient light as a result of the change from the printed billboard to the LED billboard. So really what this is an effort to update things with technology, to have a billboard that doesn't have to be serviced as much. It's not going to fade, but it's also not going to look anything like Las Vegas. It's not something that you'll be able to, in fact, in bright light, you probably can't really tell the difference between that and a printed sign because the sign dims. So it's, I think, something that is more aesthetically pleasing. It's something that will be more and more common because the technology has developed significantly over the last 10 years and will continue to develop. So we think this is an improvement to improve the aesthetics and safety, and we're not really changing the footprint. And another really important part of this is that my clients will offer, along with this, as they do for all of their digital billboards, to allow the municipality and the county to post public safety messages on the sign free of charge. So there'll be a contact information given to the city and the county, and if there's an emergency, if there's an Amber Alert, if there's a hurricane, you can post those public safety announcements to the billboard. We're here. We're happy to answer any questions. If we get more technical, I have my folks here who can maybe help out. But and one other thing before I go, there will be no animation on this, so it's not something where you'll see videos on the board. There won't be any dancing across the board. The new pictures won't tumble in or do anything like that. It just flips from one picture to another every 10 seconds, and they have the ability to do up to about 7 different advertisements on each board. The other one we'll talk about is the exact same thing. They're trying to, they're wanting to just take the Tri-Vision and upgrade it to an LED. And remove all of the catwalk and equipment that goes along with that. And that one is, we'll talk about, it's right before you turn into the Locos parking lot on the other side of the bypass. So thank you for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions that y'all might have.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone here to speak against? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We'll open it up for council discussion.
So I just have kind of one along the field, so our signage ordinances are outdated, is that correct? So what the, I'm gonna find another word to say.
Come on.
What is hindering us from updating our signage ordinances? Since we're on signage and zoning, what is hindering us from doing that?
We need a consultant and a study.
Well, not trying to be funny. To the mayor and council, when you start addressing the zoning ordinance and the sign ordinance, it is a major undertaking. And it doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. But those ordinances are outdated. So in many cases, staff has to work to make it fit. So it's just an undertaking, and it takes money to do that. And so we'll bring you a proposal to do the subdivision ordinance and the sign ordinance. I will say, oftentimes sign ordinance, because I've been through a new sign ordinance, they get pretty heated sometimes because some people, and I know Josh is sitting back there, some sign that Josh wants, you might not like, and so it gets to be a little bit, we have to work through that process. But it is something that we need to do, and so we will need the budget. And if council is directing me, staff will work on a proposal to redo the subdivision ordinance and the sign ordinance. But recognize it will not be a cheap endeavor. We'll bring a proposal back for your consideration so that we can start a process to get it done. Staff cannot do it. It will need to be done by an outside consultant. And just simply to say to you, I know it may seem like we study a lot of things, but the studies are important so that we don't mess up when we're trying to implement, because we need that expertise to help us in guiding us to make sure that we're headed down the right direction.
Yeah, well, my thing is, we're so behind. We are so behind, so when we bring these things to council, we're so behind. It's like, this is not the first time I've heard signage comes up.
Yeah.
So I think that this needs to be brought up to par so that we can, we don't have to be wasting time on something that needs to be adjusted in our ordinances.
But I do want you to let you know, this is not a 90-day process. It takes a while to get there. And so we'll move as quickly as possible, but it will take some time to get it done.
I'm not saying that you should rush the process, but I am saying that it's time.
Okay.
It's time. You don't have to rush the process, but this is just, it's just time. There's so much stuff outdated now, I'm just.
So,
She wasn't doing that at me.
I agree, Ms. Chambers, things like not, our regulations, not knowing about online businesses, that puts us a little bit out of date. But I don't think this is in the same category. And I do have some concerns and some questions. I'm somewhat reassured from the explanation that you gave us about it's static. It's because when I read it, I'm envisioning a huge TV screen, LED TV screen, and I don't want that side the road distracting drivers.
Right, this, and I may be overstating it, but it's probably the functional equivalent of the picture frames that you can get, and that your pictures are uploaded through an email account as opposed to having to take the physical picture out and put a new one in. So it's the same concept of a static image. The only difference is the image is being created by LEDs as opposed to a printed picture.
I'm glad you said it's not like Las Vegas either, because that's the other thing that came to mind when I heard that.
And it complies with all the GDOT regulations that are designed to help avoid distracting drivers. It's really intended to be safer than what's there. But in terms of appearance, it should not be
noticeably
markedly
different.
different.
Okay, but there were some staff concerns about setting precedent, is that right? Because then folks will want to do this downtown too?
Yes, and that was a concern that we did have on this, is that once we open the floodgates, so to speak, in terms of these LED sites, which can be really very large, and they do change every 10 seconds, that, you know, we are setting a precedent. So we just have to be mindful of the fact that others can come in for variances. Specifically, our concerns were there were 2 billboards on the Blue Mile district area, and that, you know, we're investing all of these funds to improve that area. And I guess it's a matter of taste whether you find those LEDs not to be obtrusive or not. I guess that's what it comes down to. But we do have 2 billboards over there that it would be very hard for staff to turn those down because of the fact that you may, you know, you haven't voted yet, but if you do approve those, it would set a precedent. So you have to be mindful of that.
There's not a billboard, an LED billboard in Bullock County that I can drive by and look at tonight to know what it's gonna look like, or is there?
Is there,
Josh?
when you get off of 67, coming into Statesboro, there is one.
Yes,
It's
that's
just
right.
the coming up time, it's the new day, it's a new time, these are the new signs. It is one though, right when you're going, right before 16.
So if I ride at 67.
67, it'll be on your right-hand side.
If I may, Sherry, it's a sign of the times.
You probably could Google it too, I mean, they're really cool.
Yeah, I want to see it in the daylight and in the dark.
Okay, yeah.
How bright and straight it is.
Yeah, but on 67, on your right-hand side, it'll be right before you get to the 2 gas stations. This one right there.
Okay.
That's right.
And the only comment I would have on the comments about setting a precedent is that these 2 signs, the one we're talking about now and the one we'll talk about next, are both in the two most commercialized areas of within the city limits. And the 2 signs that we're concerned about on the Blue Mile are are on the Blue Mile for one thing, but they're also within a sign district where billboards are expressly prohibited outright. So I think the calculus for the staff when a variance is submitted is going to be different when looking at a sign that's within a sign district where billboards are prohibited, and in the Blue Mile, on the Blue Mile and in the downtown historic district. So I think that provides them with a way to deny it if they choose to do that.
All right, is there a motion?
Josh?
Oh,
I do want to say, if you do go take a look at the one coming out the interstate, probably not the best example. I think this is the future. This is what's happening in the industry. You're going to see a lot more of this. I think the key is understanding how to regulate it rather than just saying no or yes, because it can be a horrible thing in the wrong situation and not regulated. If you go and see these gentlemen's boards where they put them in cooler or different areas, they're operated correctly, they're dimming at night. The one at the interstate's not always operating and it's not dimmed properly. So I would take that in consideration when you do look at it. But it's happening, it's coming. You know, the businesses that are advertising on this are the restaurants, are new businesses coming to town, and our sign code is the doormat to our city and new businesses that are wanting to come here. And when I have to tell them, no, that's not allowed here, we're behind on this, you know, the administration is so good in trying to work with us and help us.
okay.
So much is left to them on judgment, and it's not fair to them either, and what makes sense isn't what necessarily code allows. I don't think it's completely broken. We deal with a lot of sign code throughout the southeast. Savannah is a good example of someone that has a historic district that's trying to preserve the look, but also a commercial side, and how you address that is within what is appropriate in different sign districts. And you know, we need more of these types of digital billboards in the appropriate areas in town. That's something I would hope we could have discussion on, because we've got restaurant sites that are empty, and because this is one of the tools that they use to advertise what we have. So we have an issue with empty buildings, we've got to support these businesses and not have our sign code prohibiting what they can do. But we'd be glad to work with anybody that wants to, that we've seen work and not work. We definitely don't want these on the Blue Mile. I'm invested downtown and the commercial side, so I see and appreciate both arguments, but I think this is an asset to our community that the businesses can appreciate and enjoy.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Is there a motion to approve by council?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we move down to agenda item 10, public hearing consideration of a motion to approve application 521-07-05, Wherefore Outdoor LLC requests a variance from Article 15, Section 1511H of the State Board of Zoning Ordinance in order to upgrade the existing billboards to LED displays at 17874 Highway 67. Is there a motion to open the public hearing, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Kathy, if you would.
Aye.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting a variance to allow for the installation of an LED billboard at 17874 Highway 67. This is the end market gas station. This installation will replace the current existing Tri-Vision board on the location and remove the external lighting and catwalk from the site. As per the lighting study submitted, the digital displays will not be animated and they will adjust to the lighting conditions of the time of day in order to prevent significant distraction during low light hours. And you can see the site here on Highway 67, just heading north, just before the Veterans Memorial Parkway intersection. Future development map shows this to be in the Gateway area. The zoning map shows this to be zoned commercial retail. And the picture on the top left shows the sign at the end market gas station site. And in the bottom right shows adjacent property across the street. The staff recommendation is included herein, and know that the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission on August 3rd, 2021, the Commission voted to approve the variance by a 4-to-1 vote. If this petition is approved by the Mayor and City Council, it should be subject to the applicant's agreement to the following enumerated conditions. 1, approval of this variance does not grant the applicant the right to make structural changes to the billboard. All modifications must be approved through the issuance of a billboard permit. That is my presentation.
All right, thank you, Kathy. Is there anyone here to speak for the request?
Excuse me, Matt Matthews again, and I think pretty much everything we discussed with the previous application applies for this one. It's the best way I know to describe where it's located is after you're going away from town, right after you cross the bypass, it's on your left, right before the end market station, right before you turn to go into Locos.
Okay.
Same thing, things apply with this. I would also add that my clients would be more than happy to help in any way they can with the zoning ordinance. And Josh made a really good point that and I want to make sure that I was clear on this. These boards that are going in here actually dim and brighten with the ambient light. So it's not like an on-off. So it's not like one level for dark and one level for daylight. It actually dims based on what the ambient light is. So it's not going to look overpowering at nighttime. So again, we're happy to answer any questions that you may have and appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Is anyone here to speak again? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any discussion by council?
So you did indicate that if the city or county wanted to use the signage for, informational purposes, that we would be able to do that, right? That was part of the agreement?
Correct. Part of it, and I'll let them speak, it's public safety announcements. So it's Amber Alerts, evacuation plans, things like that. If there's an emergency, they'll post post the message on.
So no COVID testing sites?
That I'm not sure of. That I'll have to
Who
defer.
can answer that question? Okay.
Yeah, my name's Jed
Hi, Jed.
Renfro. How are you?
I'm well.
Yeah, we would definitely be open to doing something like
Okay.
that.
That's
Ben, would
okay.
you agree? I mean, we would be happy to do that,
Okay,
so
cool.
not a problem at all.
Okay, good.
The
Thank you,
concerns
sir.
going around right now. Thank you all for your time.
What kind of timeline are you looking at to change over if we approve today?
Our timeline is 60 days, Ben, 60 to 90 days due to the chip shortage and workers working and that sort of thing. So I think it's about eight to 10 weeks out. So that would be the time frame. Probably end of October, 1st of November. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Active discussion by council.
Aye.
Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 We'll move down to agenda item 11, public hearing consideration of a motion to approve application 521-07-06. Encounter Church requests a variance from Article 15, Section 1509, Table 6 of the State Zoning Ordinance in order to place a sign exceeding the 12-foot maximum height of building signs in the central business district at 39A West Main Street. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting a variance from Article 15, Section 1509, Table 6, in order to place an illuminated wall sign at 39A West Main Street, exceeding the allowed height of 12 feet. The proposed sign would not be capable of easy attachment to the building due to the facade of the building, and currently meets all other standards of the Statesboro zoning ordinance. As per the ordinance, no wall sign in the central business district may be placed above 12 feet on an elevation. Although this is the standard for the central business district, it is not unusual for signs to be granted variances from this section of the ordinance. And this shows outlined in red, the parcel on West Main Street. This parcel is located in the commercial redevelopment area number 1, as per the future development map. The zoning map shows it to be in the central business district. This shows the proposed sign that they want to attach to the building. The next slide, on the top left, the building in the middle, the dark colored charcoal building, is the actual building to which they want to attach the sign. What's preventing it, our ordinance says that you can't be more than 12 feet up from the sidewalk. But again, based on our ordinance, there is a fascia board going across the building just a little above where those windows are, that requires the sign to be on the top of the fascia board. So therefore, it goes beyond the 12-foot requirement. So that's what we're looking at today. The adjacent property, and then of course on the bottom right is the property across the street. Staff recommends approval of B 21-0706. If this petition is approved by the mayor and city council, it should be subject to the applicant's agreement to the following enumerated conditions. 1, all freestanding or traditional wall signage on the building must meet the requirements of Article 15, Section 1509, Table 6. 2, approval of this variance does not grant the right to place the sign on this building. All signage must be properly reviewed and approved by the city. At the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission on August 3rd, 2021, the commission voted to approve the variance by a 5-0 vote. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Is there anyone here to speak for the request?
Good evening, council members. Good evening, Mayor. Just want to say thank you guys for seeing our case and welcoming us so warmly into the community. Our neighbors and everybody in the community have welcomed us very favorably. And it's been an honor to be able to serve Statesboro. We've been able to help countless families through the pandemic, feed families, actually help pay people's mortgages, and really just help the community out the way that
we would like to be able to. But if there's any questions about the sign, I have our representative from United Signs, Jacob Herberman, who is here, who can answer any questions if you guys have any.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone here to speak against the request? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
All right, any council discussion? All right,
So,
seeing
but
that
I,
there-
yeah, I have just one small question. So where is it that you guys want to put the sign? Is it on top? On top?
So there's
There,
a,
okay.
Yes.
at this location, there's a board that runs across right there. You can't attach it
Okay.
because once you go past the board, there'll be glass. So we have to go through the wall. There's a parapet there that we're gonna have to run into, so it will actually be attached right there.
Okay. Thank you.
all right, any further discussion by council?
The only concern I would have would be that there's residential like directly across the street, so how bright will that light be?
It's just bright enough to illuminate the lettering.
Okay.
I'll walk up. Do I get any more questions?
Is that it?
Is that it?
All right, any further questions by council? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. We'll move now to agenda item 12, which is a public hearing, consideration of a motion to approve application AN 21-07-07, Neesmith Properties LLLP requests an annexation of 1.58 acres of property in order to complete the development of a proposed subdivision on Lakeview Road. Okay.
Are we gonna open the public hearing?
Oh, I am so sorry. Is there a motion to open the public hearing? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All right, okay.
Thank you, sir. I am going to talk about both applications being the annexation as well as the rezoning, which is ending in '07 and then '08 at the same time, because they both overlap, although I think you're going to have to do two separate votes. Okay, the applicant is requesting annexation of 1.58 acres of property on Lakeview Road in order to complete a parcel for the development of a single-family subdivision. The applicant is also requesting a zoning map amendment to the PUD, the Plan Unit Development Zoning District, in order to amend a pre-existing PUD of 39.46 acres, also on Lakeview Road, to allow for the Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the subdivision. This proposed subdivision meets the general eligibility requirements of the Subdivision Incentive Program, and their application is currently pending. So this area outlined in red is the area to be annexed and rezoned. And you can see the area outlined in black is the current PUD, which they've already attained that zoning for. And I'm not sure why, but at the time the PUD was created, it did not include this red outlined area, so, which is why we're here tonight. The future development map shows this as a site for potential annexation. The zoning map reflects, because it is still in the county, it has the county zoning to it, which is the R40. The top left shows the property. The bottom right shows adjacent property. And this shows the original site map in that these are the two lots that form the property under consideration this evening. And the next slide, if you can just sort of show on the west side, point that little square on the very west side, which is the left side, right in there. That is the property, and that will serve to provide an additional 6 lots, as well as provide the access from Lakeview Road into the whole subdivision. So this is a very important piece here for this subdivision to be created. Therefore, staff recommends approval of AN 21-0707 and RZ 21-0708. If this petition is approved by the mayor and city council, it should be subject to the applicant's agreement to the following enumerated conditions. 1, approval of this annexation and zoning map amendment does not grant the site and/or building plan approval as submitted. Projects will be required to meet all city ordinances and applicable building codes. 2, prior to construction commencement on any proposed lot, the subdivision plat, as well as the bylaws and restrictive covenants shall be reviewed and approved by staff, in addition to any other applicable City of Statesboro subdivision regulations. At the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission on August 3rd, 2021, the commission voted to approve the annexation and zoning map amendment by a 5-0 vote. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that's my presentation.
All right, thank you, Kathy. Is there anyone here to speak for this request?
Joey Maxwell, Maxwell Redmond Associates. Kathy did a really good job in presenting this, and I really have nothing more to add, but here to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Maxwell. All right, is there anyone here to speak against the request? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, any discussion by council?
So this is contiguous with the city boundaries? It didn't indicate that in that thing.
Yeah, it is allowed in because the rest of it did get annexed in, so this is contiguous to the existing annexation that's there.
Yeah, the PUD's already annexed. in
Yes,
other words.
that's correct.
Yeah, okay. And we're gonna combine this with the existing PUD?
That is correct, and this will serve as the entranceway, so.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. And so they'll be required to hook on to all city services?
Correct, oh, yes.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we'll move down to agenda item 13, public hearing consideration of a motion to approve application 521-07-10. The Statesboro Convention and Business Bureau requests a variance from Article 11, Section 1102D of the Statesboro zoning ordinance in order to increase the footprint of the secondary structure on the lot in order to create a concrete slab and lean-to roof for exterior cooling and freezer units at 228 South Main Street. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The applicant is requesting a setback variance in order to extend the building footprint of the existing building located in the rear of the Convention and Visitors Bureau building on South Main. The purpose of this expansion would be to allow for exterior cooler and freezer units on the building for outdoor events. And you can see the outline, and this shows the building directly to the rear of the CDB building. The site is located on the future development map in the downtown district. The zoning map shows it to be highway-oriented commercial. And that shows the site plan for the development. Next one. And the top left shows the building. This is the one to the rear. And it's also used for the farmer's market too. And then on the bottom right, you see there's an adjacent residential property. And so we do have a concern about the noise being generated from these coolers. This property is quite close to the building in the top left photo. So we did pick that up as a condition. Staff recommends approval of B 21-07-10. If this petition is approved by the mayor and city council, it should be subject to the applicant's agreement to the following enumerated conditions. 1, approval of this variance does not grant the right to develop on the site. All construction work must be reviewed and approved by the city. 2, the applicant must ensure that some form of sound deafening fencing is installed around the coolers to prevent noise pollution to the nearby residents, which is a significant concern. At the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission on August 3rd, 2021, the commission voted to approve the variance by a vote of 4-0. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak for the request?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I'm Jamie Carty. I'm the contractor on this ongoing project. But this came up, right now the coolers are located on the back of the existing Visitors Bureau. So they're doing the drive-by pickup for the farmer's market. And so they want to move those coolers to the end of this building, which will require this variance. The group is in agreement with putting the fence around this. Initially, there was going to be a walkway around that corner of the building to access the coolers from the outside. Since then, they have decided to access that from inside the building. So it'll just be to go out, a cooler and a cooler. So for safety purposes and the security of those, they are in agreement with fencing that in. So the only access will be from inside the building. And hopefully that'll take care of any sound issues as well. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone here to speak against the request? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, any discussion by council?
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about, not just a fence. A fence isn't gonna stop much noise. Is there some kind of baffling or, because I rode over there to look. It's really close to that man's house.
I'm not sure exactly what, I mean, we discussed maybe a wooden fence, if that would accomplish what we need to do. But they're open to whatever it takes to dampen that sound to whatever it needs to be. But it would be some sort of solid fence, obviously not an open fence.
All right, any further discussion by council? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve the staff recommendations?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. We'll move down to agenda item 14, which is a public hearing consideration of a motion to approve application CBD 21-07-11. Justin P. requests plan approval for the expansion of the existing Divvy Desk facility located at 19 Cortlandt Street. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay.
Thank you, sir. The applicant requests plan approval for the expansion of the building located at 19 Cortlandt Street. Per Article 8, Section 803 of the Statesboro zoning ordinance, development of property in the CBD shall be reviewed by the Planning Commission and City Council to ensure that the construction maintains the integrity and harmony of the central business district prior to the issuance of a building permit. At this time, plans have been reviewed by city staff and may be approved pending the agreement of the Planning Commission and City Council. So because they're adding onto this building, our code requires that you, the Planning Commission and the City Council, look at what the addition is. Here we are on Cortlandt Street, and that shows the outline of this building. The future development map shows this in commercial redevelopment area number 3. The zoning map shows this in the central business district, zoning district. The subject property is shown on the top left, Divvy Desk. And the bottom right shows where the potential renovation area of this property. This is the back alley to that building. And the plan is to build a deck and an awning so as to provide some outdoor space for the clients that use this facility. Next slide shows the top left one shows the plan. These aren't the easiest plans to read, I admit, but the top left one, the top one on the left does show the awning that will be built, and then the deck underneath it. And so that's the proposed type of improvement that will be there. Staff recommends approval of CBD 21-07-11. If this petition is approved by the mayor and city council, it should be subject to the applicant's agreement to the following enumerated conditions. 1, all exterior building materials utilized in the construction must meet the requirements as outlined in Article 30, Section 3008 of the Statesboro zoning ordinance. 2, exterior paint colors must be drawn from the range of colors already existing in the district or as outlined by the historic color patterns governed by the DSDA. 3, any signage proposed in the newly constructed area must be approved as per the sign requirements outlined for Article 15, Section 1509, unless a mural is proposed. 4, if a mural is proposed as the signage for this area, it must meet all regulations as outlined in Article 30, Section 3005. At the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission on August 3rd, 2021, the Commission voted to approve the plan by a 5-0 vote. And that is my presentation. That's my final presentation. So.
Thank you. Is there anyone to speak for the request?
Aren't you glad this isn't a sign issue? Hi, I'm Justin. I'm the owner of Divvy Desk. Good evening, Mayor, Council. We are just renovating this open air space that we have into a courtyard. As most of you have probably seen, that alleyway that bridges North Main and Sebald has seen better days, so we're just trying to do our part and making Statesboro look beautiful. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone here to speak against the request? Seeing that there is not, is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion by council?
What is Divvy Desk? What is it?
Shared
Mark
space.
Aaron?
Shared office space, you can.
It's office space? Okay.
Yeah, it's a creative co-working space. So I rent out desks and private offices to creative entrepreneurs, people that don't want to work from coffee shops or from their house. I'm a filmmaker myself and realize that I work better around people than at my home because I get distracted by laundry and video games. So even though we do have video games at Divvy Desk, but I don't play them that much. So we have a good group of people there now, and we've got a few groups that have outgrown the space. So that's essentially what it is.
Any further discussion by council?
I think it's gonna be a positive addition. I think it's really smart to take advantage. The way, if y'all haven't been over there, the way it's laid out, the buildings on each side are longer. So when you step out his back door, he's got a solid wall here and a solid wall here. So he's just gonna put in a deck and put some awning over it to make use of that space. So to make it look better and to expand the space you can use.
That's right. The members can access the outdoor space, work there, for the 2 weeks out of the year that it feels good.
Spray ground, maybe?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we move down to agenda item 15, consideration of a motion to approve resolution 2021-30, a resolution approving the amendment to completion of construction date in the current intergovernmental agreement with the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority for the Creek on the Blue Mile project and authorization to execute contract document exhibits E and F. Mr. Penny.
Mayor, members of the council, we currently have an agreement with state for the GFO funds, and basically that runs out in January. So we need to amend that. So we recommend approval of this extended agreement that goes to January 2026 for the Creek on the Blue Mountain project. We recommend that to you.
All right, any discussion by council?
Yes, please. This might be a good place, Mr. Penny, to do what I was telling you. I wanted to hear kind of an update of where we are as far as the city's responsibilities toward the project, the Creek on the Blue Mile. I mean, we've entered an agreement that we can take advantage of the $15 million that's offered if and when we can figure out how to finance it.
No,
Tell me more.
we've already financed. We have a line of credit for $15 million.
But we haven't borrowed any money.
we've only borrowed about $15,000. When we closed that, there was a requirement that we pull down some of that money. So what we did is we pulled down about $15,000. And so we're making a minimal payment on that $15 million loan because we've only pulled down a certain amount of it. So those funds are sitting there waiting for us when we are ready to proceed with the project. Again, and council at this point is not committed to the project. You have the 15 million that's available to us, and then we had the $5.5 million grant that was available, which we have been using to this point for the feasibility study that's been done, and we would hope to be able to use the next share for the design of the project. Once we get the design done, council will need to make a decision, is it a go or a no-go, but at this point, the feasibility study says you could do it. The issue became the cost. So when we started out, we had about $20 million, and the thought is that you could do the project for $20 million, but when we got into the project, the cost ballooned to anywhere from 44 million to 70-some million, which was way outside of our range. So at this point, our hope would be that with the line of credit, with hopefully the grant funds that we have on hand, with the next item that's going to come up, with possibly some funding from GDOT for some bridges, we'd be able to cover the $27 million project that was described to you earlier, which includes the design and the project administration that was laid out in the work session this afternoon. If it gets outside of the $27 million, then, and even if we don't get the next grant, council still has an opportunity to decide we don't want to do this. And if you got the next grant, you can still decide not to do it. It just depends upon what council's desires are.
Thank you. So this agreement we're being asked to approve now just extends our options?
If we don't, come January 2022, someone's gonna come down here and say, take me on the Blue Mile and show me the project that you completed. And we're not gonna have a project to show them. So we're extending out to January 2026.
So it's basically the same terms, just extending it. There's nothing different.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, any further discussion by council? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, we move down to agenda item 16, consideration of a motion to approve resolution 2021-31, a resolution approving application to the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget for state fiscal recovery funds for the Creek on the Blue Mile project. Mr. Bennett.
Mayor, members of the council, Governor Kemp made available out of some state ARPA funds about, it was $300 million for broadband, $250 million for water and sewer, and another $325 million for negative economic impact projects. And what we're asking you for authority to do is to submit a grant application for the Creek on the Blue Mile stormwater management project. Initially, when this came down, we thought there was a lot more money available, but with the $250 million pot, there are lots of communities that will be seeking this funding. And we looked at several projects for the city, and through water and sewer, and we looked at this project. This project is one where we need to see if we can bring additional funding to close that gap so that we don't have to look to borrow any additional funds. We have other funds available, which I talked about a little earlier, that would be available to us for water and sewer projects along with housing. So what we're asking you for is authorization to submit a grant application, which is due on August the 31st, to the state for consideration of, and we didn't include an amount in this project, but the grant is being written by our staff in conjunction with our consultants. And we envision some funding in the neighborhood of $3 to $5 million to hopefully close that gap. And so we're asking you to authorize us to do that.
All right, any discussion by council?
What is the match requirement?
There's a match requirement, however, is there a certain percentage?
I don't recall the percentage.
Match will not be an issue for us. The GFA funds, which we would use those funds as our match.
The loan?
It's our line, not the loan, because it's a line of credit.
Right.
That we would have to borrow. In essence, that would be our funding that we would put up as match.
Okay, but this grant may not close the gap, so that means we would, in order to accept the grant money, we would have to trigger the rest of the loan, correct?
Yeah, we'd end up, but again, you have right, all we're doing at this point is applying, and at some point, if we get the grant, and we're moving forward with the project, then we would have to trigger the loan.
Do we know what the proposed economic impact is gonna be positively? I mean, we've had some numbers, but they've been very vague and not specific to actual properties being developed.
The return on investment is it? I can't tell you, I can share those numbers with you.
We don't have anything definitive on that.
I can't, I wouldn't want to try to put some numbers out.
Sure.
But again, I think Andy and them are not here, but you know, to have the show that, and the vision expects for commercial development in that area up and down, and I'm not sure what kinds of millions of dollars we expect on return. I wouldn't want to try to give you a number. I will say that when y'all approve the loan, we know what the debt requirement would be on that loan. So obviously, we're committed, because we closed on that loan, to be able to pay those funds back. I do believe that the thought was, some of it's in the TAD district.
Some of the projects.
Some of it's in the TAD district. So if, with the development along that TAD district, we would expect some return on that development, along with some stormwater money to assist us with the repayment of that GFA loan. But I can't give you a financial, economic impact on that project.
Okay, and the reason I ask that is because, you know, when we do things like, you know, the residential subdivisions, I mean, we kind of have a return on investment, and I'm really concerned about chasing more money when we don't have a defined return on investment. I think that should be a concern for all of us.
I have two more questions, please. In order to have a chance of getting this, we have to apply for the grant by the 31st of this month.
Yes.
Do we have any idea when the awards will be made? When will we find out?
October?
October of this year?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. So if we got it, that's really pushing us to make a decision on Creek on the Blue Hole. What happens if we haven't decided to go forward and we get the grant? And we just have to say no thank you?
We're not in that space. The space that we're in right now is that this is an opportunity for us to get some additional funding for a project. And so we're not committed to doing it. We're not committed to saying, this is just like any other grant opportunity that we've ever had. We're going after it, and if we're able to say, you know, this is a project we want to go after, we can pull the trigger then. If we look at this project and say we don't want to move forward, we can pull the trigger on that. But this is an opportunity for us to get some funding that's a part of the opera opportunity. And these kind of opportunities just don't come by like that very often. For us to be able to get, you know, potentially receive $3 to $5 million. And even if it is a match, us to be able to receive $3 to $5 million, that's on, you know, that's a match that we should be willing What is it, Mayor?
Mayor, to Ms. Barr's point,
Mhm.
it's not as if they're gonna be expecting us to start the project. These ARPA funds, the way the ARPA, not in 90 days, the way the ARPA funds are working, we have until the end of 2026 to complete the projects. And those are the funds that we have already been committed, and those are in keeping with these funds as well.
So it sounds like if we find out in 3 months that we've been approved for it, so we don't start drawing it down or spending it, we don't have to commit immediately.
Right.
Okay.
You'd have to say you're gonna accept them, but as long as you don't spend the money, you can always send it back.
Okay, thank you, that helps.
All right, so with that being said, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Right.
All right, let's move down to, agenda item 17, consideration of a motion to approve resolution 2021-32, a resolution granting approval of the Statesboro Police Department to apply for a grant to the Bureau of Justice Administration in the amount of $9,649.50.
Mayor, members of the council, we have an opportunity for a grant, and basically what we would use these funds for is some realistic scenario-based training equipment out at our training ground that the Bullock County Sheriff's Department and our police department utilizes. And this grant opportunity came available to us, and we would recommend that you authorize us to submit the grant paperwork. Grant.
Thank you. All right, any discussion by council? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we move down to agenda item 18, consideration of a motion to approve a memorandum of understanding with the Blue Mile Foundation Incorporated for the Creek on the Blue Mile project. Mr. Penny.
Mayor and council, as we talked about preparing an application for the ARPA funds, we also thought it was important, we already have an agreement with the Blue Mile Foundation. However, as we have been talking and through the feasibility study, a lot of things have been talked about the sale of the property and what will happen with the proceeds. I just thought, and staff and city attorney, that it would be important to show as a part of that grant application that there's a joint effort between the city, the nonprofit organization, and to further memorialize our relationship with the Blue Mile Foundation. And so we have a memorandum of understanding for your consideration, which the Blue Mile Foundation has reviewed, and they've agreed to, that, again, they recognize that the city has made a big commitment, will make a big commitment that this project is to move forward, but they also, through the sale of some of the properties, of all the properties, would provide some funding that would also be utilized to help make the project come to pass. And so we recommend to you tonight that you would approve the MOU with the Creek on the Blue Mile Foundation, which is before you.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Penny. Any discussion by council? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We move down to agenda item 19, consideration of motion to approve payment to Uncle Suge for assigned relocation and easement acquisition. Mr. Penny.
Oh.
You supposed to pull that.
Yeah, that's, I'm sorry.
Skip it down to
You can skip it.
Yeah, we need.
What number was that?
That will come to you.
Mayor, I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
That wasn't mine.
You messed up on the third page.
So,
Just saying.
Yeah, they just need to be pulled.
Uncle Suge?
So,
Oh, no, this is, no, that's my number.
Oh, that ain't mine.
Yeah, agenda item 20, consideration of a motion to approve the affordable housing plan for the city of Statesboro. I know council said that they wanted to wait 2 weeks, the first meeting in September. Is that still the understanding for council?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion to table agenda item 20 until the first meeting of September?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Agenda item 21, consideration of motion to approve the purchase of 8 new patrol cars, including upfitting and required equipment, as well as as a replacement detective vehicle in an amount not to exceed $572,014. This purchase will be paid from the 2019 SPOLOS funds. Mr. Bennett.
Mayor, I'm not sure I can add anything else here. We do recommend the purchase of the police cars too.
Okay. All right, council. All right, seeing that is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we move down to agenda item 22. Consideration of a motion to approve the purchase of 2 Pierce fire engines in the amount of $1,342,410. This purchase will be paid from the 2019 SPOLOS funds. Mr. Penn.
Mayor, at the last council meeting, I told you that we had found a way to get these trucks at today's price, and we made a commitment to purchase these. And so tonight, we're bringing the actual document for you to approve the purchase of these fire trucks. If we didn't purchase these fire trucks, we'd probably be looking at a significant increase in the cost of the fire trucks. Therefore, we do recommend that you approve the purchase of these 2 fire trucks. When you do fire trucks, they don't have them on the showroom floor. You can count on about a year for delivery, because they build it and then we have to go out and inspect it and make sure it's what we want it to be, and then we'll get it back. And so there's a long lead time, so we recommend that you approve the purchase of these 2 fire trucks.
All right, thank you. All right, any discussion by council?
Jason, this even seemed cheaper than last time we bought a fire truck, is that true?
They're all custom made, they're all
Pretty close,
specific, so
but-
it varies on your
Tim is back.
equipment.
I'm just saying, compared to the one we bought 6, 7, 8 years ago, this one seems
These are
cheaper.
engines, the last one included the tower truck, which is
Oh, I got you.
what jacked that price up.
But still,
We're
that's
saving about
still a
$70,000.
pretty good price, yeah.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we move down to agenda item 23. Consideration to set the dates for the required 3 public hearings to solicit input regarding the millage rate of 7.308 for the 2021 property taxes. First public hearing, August the 31st, at 9 a.m. Second public hearing, August the 31st, at 6 p.m. And third public hearing, September the 7th, at 9 a.m. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, move down to agenda item 24. Other business from city council.
Is this where we're gonna hear from our guest?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I just wanted to take the time out to publicly thank everyone for all of your prayers and support during the time that my daughter was sick. I really appreciate everyone who reached out to me, who prayed for my family. Don't think I didn't notice it if I didn't respond to your text, but I greatly appreciate everything that everyone did during that time. And I ask that you continue to pray for my daughter, because we are not out of the woods yet, but things are looking really good.
That's a good report. Thank you. Any further business for city council?
Mr. Mayor, maybe I could mention here, the youth council plans an event for this Saturday at Loretta Moore from 11 to 3. They do have vaccination pop-up clinic that will feature the Pfizer, which is approved for 12 to 17-year-olds. So it's an opportunity for parents, guardians to take younger teens to get a vaccine this Saturday at Loretta Moore from 11 till 3. They asked for our input. I've talked to one of the co-chairs of the youth council today, texted, and they asked for council members' input on whether they should continue their plans to have that youth event this Saturday in light of the rising numbers. So I'm happy to hear anybody's opinion to convey that to them. I did ask if they were planning bouncy houses and food and things like that. She said no. They'll have bottled water. They're tabling. Youth serving organizations will have handouts. The GSU women's basketball team will do a pickup game. they're not really expecting a whole big turnout anyway. But they will continue the vaccine clinic, whether they do the rest of it or not. So if anybody has an opinion about whether they should continue the rest of it, we'll pass it along to them.
Okay, council?
Yeah, I think you should continue. Me
Okay.
personally.
All right. Anybody else? No? John, continue or no opinion?
No, sir, I'm good.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
And it's hard to advise
Councilwoman
anybody.
Matt?
Yeah, it's hard to advise someone on what to do. I mean,
Do your best.
I
yeah,
think
wear a mask and be safe.
Yeah, you know, as I think about it, I think we need to let them kind of decide at this point. That way, and I'm just gonna assume that council is comfortable with whatever they decide, is that?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, so I think that needs to be the message we take back to them.
Thank you, and we also want to say thank you to the youth council for setting up this clinic. To
Yeah.
make it easy, because it is still hard to find where you can take a 12 to 17-year-old.
Yeah.
Not everybody in town has it consistently, so this will be a good opportunity to do that on Saturday.
Okay. All right, and so we move on to city manager comments.
Yes, Mayor, I wanted to, and I'm sorry, I need to open this email so I can just make sure I have the right information. At the last council meeting, Councilmember Boyer asked about vaccinations. And so I reached out to the health department about doing some vaccinations here at City Hall. And so they have agreed to come on, and what we tried to do was to do it, it's not necessarily for city employees. City employees it would be open to city employees, but it would be open to our citizens that might be coming to our building, and we would advertise it, we would market it. But they would come on September 1st from 9 to 11. We try to pick a time when we tend to have a lot of customers coming on the first floor. And so I wanted to report back to you. We have, and they would bring Johnson & Johnson, and they would bring Moderna to be available for folks to get vaccinated on September 1st. So I wanted to report that back to you.
Okay.
And then I wanted to just call your attention, we did put in the FYI, our Youth Connect program was featured in the Georgia Cities magazine.
That's good stuff.
So we appreciate that, and thank y'all for supporting that and funding it this year and for next year. And Mr. Demetrius back there for shepherding that program. Did want to report to you on Grady Street Park. That park is nearing completion. I think the goal was to have it near, it's almost complete this week. They got the basketball courts painted. They still have some parking lot work. I'm not sure it's gonna be as complete as we thought. They thought it was gonna be close by Friday, except having the sod in place. So weather permitting, it might be pretty much done. The playground equipment is in place. But I recommend to you that with the rise in COVID numbers, that we do a scale down ribbon cutting and get it open, and then as things improve, we might do something a little bit bigger. But as soon as it's done, we certainly don't want to keep the kids from getting on them. We're gonna keep the basketball goals down, but once it's done, we need to put the basketball goals up and let folks go play. Because the playground equipment, the picnic ground, I mean, it all looks great. And so maybe by the end of the month, it will be completed, but come back a little bit later for a bigger event.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And then my last thing, I just wanted to mention to you that we met with the food bank last evening. There's some money available for a food bank. There's $1 million through community development block grant funds. So Tom Couch and I met with our local food bank last night because of the senior housing project. They are going to be displaced when that project gets funded. And so we met with them and talked about what they need to do in order to get ready to apply for those funds. The county or the city has to be the applicant. And what I would recommend, and Tom Couch and I agree, the county should be the applicant because the CDBG funds specifically set aside for COVID. But if we apply, we might jeopardize us receiving some grant funds for housing. And so, since they're not doing housing, let the county be the applicant. But we may want to consider some ARPA funds to help with that project. And I've been clear, I hope I didn't step out of line, but been clear that our desire would be for a new location someplace within the city limits of Statesboro, closer to the clients that would typically utilize that facility. And so it was a good meeting, and we'll keep you posted.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I had a couple of follow-up questions, please. Mr. Penny, thank you for setting up a vaccine opportunity at City Hall. Are we talking about having the providers actually in the lobby in the building when folks come in, or next door, or how will that work?
We got to work out those logistics. I've talked to my staff today, and someone's going to be leading that effort. I think if you want to have the greatest impact, it has to be in this building. Because if you put it next door, you got to get people to go next door. And so if we can do it in the lobby area, but provide the right privacy, I think it would probably have the greatest impact if we could do it downstairs.
Thank you. And my other question, do you have any update on the other requests that I had 2 weeks ago about incentives, or any idea about when we might hear more?
My goal is to try to have that to you by the end of the week. I would just simply say to you, I'm thinking outside the box, but yeah, I'm thinking outside the box. And when we've looked at incentives, we've talked about what things would make people want to, that would motivate them to get a vaccination. And so I'll leave it at that, but by the end of the week, I should be able to give you a report.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Penny.
I'm sorry, and the vaccination clinic is the first, so maybe with those incentives, whatever they are, they could get them on the first, since it'll be here, maybe.
We would
Just my
probably
thought.
have to approve something before that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Expenditure of city funds and all that. Okay, can I ask you one quick, real quick? And I didn't mention this before, but I know you're going after the grant money for the Blue Mamba. Could you please outline for us, tell us about like neighborhoods like Fox Lake and Oak Street and Ramble Road and Marywood, why we're not going for a grant funding to maybe put in sewer in those neighborhoods is because why?
The reason we're not going for those funds, we already have commitment for about $12.3 million that's coming to the city of Statesboro. It's gonna come in two buckets, and we don't have all the guidelines for how those funds are to be used, but as I talked about earlier on housing, we know that neighborhood improvements are eligible, and water and sewer infrastructure. And so my plan, what we present to you in a couple of weeks, will be to look at those neighborhoods that have been without water and sewer for many years, to use those funds to ensure that we can extend water and sewer to those areas that have been in the city for a number of years but still don't have that infrastructure in place. Our intent is $12.3 million is a lot of money, but it doesn't take long to spend it. But our goal is not to send one nickel back, and to use every bit of that money between the housing and the infrastructure needs that we have in Statesboro, and maybe again seeing what we can help with the food bank, if as long as they look at a building somewhere in the city of Statesboro.
So hopefully fulfilling some promises that are long overdue for some of these citizens, and to put it in the words of Councilman or Councilwoman Shavers, it's time.
It's time. And we don't have to study it.
It's time. No, and these projects are already on the shelf, right? Yeah.
All right, so now we're down to public comments. We have Ms. Brianne and Madeline. If you guys will.
So I'm just going to introduce, Hi, City Council. My name is Madeline. I'm a graduate student at Georgia Southern University. I also am a double eagle. I just got my bachelor's in clinical psychology, also from Georgia Southern. As you can see, I'm visually impaired, legally blind, and my friend Brianne back here is in a wheelchair. We're here today to introduce you a topic that's really important to a lot of Georgia Southern students and a lot of individuals within our community. You're also going to hear from Shannon Kilbrew, who is home and bedbound, which is why she's not here today. And I am the president of Students with Disabilities Advocacy Group on Georgia Southern's campus. We are partnered with the SARC, which is our Students with Disabilities Resource Center. And so we are kind of the coalition on campus that makes sure that people like me and Brianne can actually function here. Unfortunately, right now we can't. And Brianne is here to share with you a little bit of her personal experience. We'll hear from Shannon, and I will tell you a little bit about mine, because 3 very different disabilities, 3 very different realities every day. And I'll let Brianne take it from here.
Thank you.
Does this detach?
It does.
Yes. Just
Pull it up.
I'll get. Yeah, you. I don't want to break it. There you go.
My name is Interdollar, and I'm the vice president with the Students with Disabilities Advocacy Group that Madeline introduced you to. I wanted to introduce you to my struggles of moving here just last week. I've already ran into many problems. The first issue was just getting into my apartment. The wheelchair ramp that is at my apartment has about an inch or about half an inch to an inch off the ground. So you cannot actually, Madeline tried before, I cannot actually get over it by myself. Someone else has to push me over it. Trying just to get to campus, the road on Rucker Lane, the sidewalks are somewhat dangerous to even walk on, much less try to get a wheelchair over. Several times I have to push myself off of the road into the grass, or I am an ambulatory wheelchair user. I'm very lucky with that. I can just get up and push it over, but that's not always the best option for me. Or I can get someone else to help me. And just getting around campus, most of the roads are made of cobblestone, but they are not kept up. So most of the roads are, the cobblestone is raising from the ground. There are big divots in the holes. There are a lot of potholes on campus. They make it hard to just get around campus. A lot of these potholes are also in the building's ramps. Even the floors in some of the buildings are not completely accessible. And some of the elevators aren't even accessible. Most people just walk in the elevator, they can push the buttons no matter how high they are. But I do have to reach. If I was any shorter in one of the building's elevators, I would not be able to reach it. It also does not have sensors. So I actually trapped my hand in the other day, because when I move through the wheelchair, if I don't get through fast enough, it will just close. Even coming in here today, most of the building is accessible. However, when you try to go to this bathroom, the door itself swings outwards. So just when you are city planning or seeing different things, try to think about it. If you were in a chair, how could you move into the space? Madeline had to help me get into that one. There's nothing, the pool door is not, the door itself is a little high, and the wheelchair bathroom pulls outward. It needs to pull inward so that someone could actually access it. Madeline, did you want to talk, or do you want them to?
Do you want to? You have a letter from Shannon?
Yes, if you will, make sure whoever wants one of these, including Al, please. So as Madeline mentioned, Shannon Kilbrew is not able to be with us, but she sent a letter that I said I would read for her. Dear Mayor and City Council, my name is Shannon Freeman Kilbrew, and I am a native of Statesboro. On behalf of my patient advocacy group, Shannon's Hope for House Calls and Home Medical Care, I thank you sincerely for your interest and consideration for my suggestion of park and recreation accessible items for Statesboro. The physical limitations of my own health issues led to the founding of my advocacy in 2019 as I realized the exorbitant need for physician house calls, concierge medical care, and other accessibility accommodations in our Statesboro community. I was discharged from my longtime primary care provider due to the very limitations for which I had been routinely treated by that office for well over a decade. This event led to my passion to advocate for all who have different abilities, physical limitations, and the elderly in our community. My advocacy soon branched beyond concierge medical care to the needs of accessibility for daily life. Quality of life is just as important to good health as proper medical care. A focus on inclusion is essential for people of all abilities and unique needs. As a person who has faced changes and adaptation due to a rare neuromuscular disease onset in my early adulthood, I know that many adaptation ideas are not financially feasible and require exorbitant time and labor hours. The ideas of adapted picnic tables and park benches would be most beneficial to our community without tremendous financial detriment. We often never fully realize a need until we are faced with it ourselves. I never comprehended the ostracization of those with limitations until I myself was forced to adapt my life. As I attempted to continue with a normal routine, I found myself so restricted when I left my home. Those with limitations and different abilities struggle to maintain a sense of normalcy. The most basic of daily activities can be quite challenging. The limitations alone often cause depression and anxiety. Many feel the need to stay near home rather than be faced with no accessible accommodations. There is a tremendous amount of ostracization surrounding our citizens with differing abilities and needs. Unfortunately, this tends to further isolation and loss of socialization. Our community is at the forefront of revitalization projects. This is the perfect opportunity for accommodating methods of inclusion for safety, daily life, and socialization. Whether one is born with limitations, finds themselves adapting to a new diagnosis, is encountering age-appropriate changes, or merely a temporary need, we as a community can rise to meet the need. I have given much thought for ways in which our beloved Statesboro can be more accommodating for all citizens. This would be a perfect step towards inclusion for all. We are all one diagnosis, one accident, or other life event away from being in need. This would be a phenomenal project for our community and would benefit our citizens today's and tomorrow's. I truly believe our beloved Statesboro can be a leader in accessibility. I would love for Statesboro to be known as the city of inclusion and be a role model for other communities. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Shannon E. Killigrew. And she's posted on Facebook pictures of the picnic table that you can roll the wheelchair up under the end of. It's a specific project she's working on.
So in more discussion, and me and Shannon have been friends just because we're both younger women with disabilities that live in Statesboro, so we talk a lot, you know. Usually it's ranting about things that we can't do. But we did have this amazing idea about, okay, we're redoing our parks, now's the time, we might as well. I just sat through a city council meeting about how y'all are kind of behind the times and have to, you know, redo some stuff. And we're right there with you, you know. And the ADA accessibility for people with disabilities, that's not something that's talked about. We don't pay attention to Biden when he speaks about Americans with disabilities. We don't listen to John Ossoff talk about what he's going to do for our state for people with disabilities because it's not thought of. We are one of the most ostracized minorities in this country. We are the least talked about. And our legislation, the ADA, hasn't been amended in over 25 years. We just added service dogs a decade ago, and it's still not perfect. And, you know, that is an extreme of, you know, Shannon's where she doesn't leave her home at all. She doesn't leave her home at all. I am fortunately blessed enough to be here in Statesboro and be at school and be a full-time student. The only reason I'm able to do that is because I'm on a full ride scholarship because I'm smart, right? If I was just blind Madeline, I would be living below the poverty line. I would not be living in the apartment I live in right now. I wouldn't even live here because I can't get to the grocery store by myself. I am at the mercy of my friends. I've had professors pick me up and take me home from class before. I get stranded on campus on a regular basis, and I have 2 feet that can get me home if I really need to walk an hour and a half to get there. Brianne got stranded on campus this week, and she had to call me, the blind girl, to come and get her. So what did I do? I called one of my friends. Hey, my friend Brianne is in a wheelchair. Can you please drive me to go and get her? And I have to be at the mercy of people saying yes to that. And oftentimes, it comes with me using my disability check that I get from the government every month to fill my friend's gas tanks. That's not what that money's meant for, except without it, I wouldn't have a way to get to and from class, to and from the grocery store. I wouldn't have money to pay rent. I wouldn't have anything. And on top of that, not only do I live in America and I'm able to get scholarships to go to a four-year university that's public, I also have 2 parents that care about me. Not everybody can say that. So that being said, Statesboro has become my home over the past 6 years. I've been here for 6 years, and I love it here. You know, I am about to graduate in May with a master's degree, and I'm trying to convince my mom that it's a good idea for me to stay down here past me being in school, you know? And so I would love for Statesboro to be a place that I can stay, that I'm physically able to stay in and live in, but right now it's not. And it's not for a lot of people. And we have our group on Statesboro's campus that's full of students. There's 25 of us-ish in that group, and 2 of us are here because that's how impossible it is to get places. You know? So I know that this isn't talked about a lot about. I know that this is my first time I've ever been in front of the city council talking about disabilities. And we're talking about it from a school perspective because I've been to Title IX. I've been to the legal office. I've been to SARC. And they tell me, sorry, I can't help you. So I don't know what else to do. And that's why I'm here. That's why we're all here. We're at a loss. There's no money, there's no care, there's no anybody, no able-bodied person saying, hey, let me help you. Because it's not their problem, you know? So here we are. And all we really need is y'all to listen and help us as much as you can. That's all we really ask for. And I am, realize that, yes, it can cost a lot of money, but it's money that would be worth spending, especially on our own citizens here, making our city and town a better, fairer, more equal, more equitable place to live for everybody, no matter who you are. So, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Brianne. All right. We have one more person, Mr. Nicholas Douglas. Okay. So with that being said, we've come down to the end of our agenda. There's no need for us to go into executive session?
No.
We've had enough today. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Thank you, John.
Council members, take a minute to sign the certificate for me before you go to it.